let's talk to this bloke. He's the best storyteller in Australia. He tells us all about Ipswich history. We've got Ash Barty. Good luck to Ash tonight. There's going to be a lot of Barty parties happening around. We're having one here at West Bremer Radio.
Yes.
We're going to have a big party in the car park.
Yes.
We haven't got one.
We'll borrow someone else's.
Borrow some, maybe the other mob down the road.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, now this bloke's going to tell us about a champion knitter.
Okay.
Let's talk to him. Harold the H. All together. Peacock. He's going to tell us all about historyouthere.com. Mate, this is unbelievable. And don't forget to get on Facebook and send in your We want to get as many people on there because we're going to give away a big prize, which we'll tell you what it is one day.
Okay.
Hey, Harold.
Yeah,
you all right?
Oh, look, I'm excited. The Ipswich Championship, we're at Ash Barty tonight, hopefully. And, of course, 75 odd years ago, the championship knitter we had here.
Alfie Langer, Kevin Walters, Kieran Walters, Des Morris, Rod Morris.
Do they all knit too? Do they knit as well?
Dud Beattie. Alfie's one of the great knitters. Well, his mother is. His mum's a knitter. Go ahead.
Was it?
I'm telling you the truth, his mum's still alive. She's a lovely lady. Listen, believe it or not, you know where he was born and bred and she still lives in the house? Ferret Street. Well, he's a ferret.
Yeah, well, I don't see anything wrong with Ferret Street. I like Ferret.
Go ahead for the ferrets.
Yeah. Anyway, look, I'll tell you about this, the championship knitter from 1944, because back then there was claim and counterclaim erupted in the year 1944 about who was the best knitter in the Southern Hemisphere. The championship crown eventually, of course, came to one of our locals, and they became known as the Needle Ace of Ipswich.
Oh.
Anyway, it all started when a Cuban was seen knitting a bright yellow scarf in Hyde Park in Sydney. It was being done with a border at each end, and in cable stitch, and the rest in plain. And you'll know what I'm talking about when I explain that, don't you? The knitter said that they'd never dropped a stitch and had absolutely no difficulty in casting off. Oh. Now, what made this remarkable was that the knitter was a 26-year-old Cuban sailor called Ricardo Bacaudis. This was during the Second World War, and he was the only Cuban sailor in Australia.
Wow.
Now, the story made the newspapers, and what upset people was that he claimed to be the best male knitter in the Southern Hemisphere. Now, but this spurious claim spread around Australia like wildfire. From that point on, claims and counterclaims for the Southern Hemisphere title were made by knitters all around the country. Now, there was Private A. McLeod from Islington near Newcastle. He challenged the Cuban to a knit-off, making any garment in any kind of fancy stitch, from a baby layette to a woman's dress. Now, Mrs. McLeod proudly showed off her husband's knitting. There were jackets, dresses, jumpers, cardigans, socks, and even a khaki sweater for himself to wear while he was on garrison duty.
Wow.
Then there was Bill Adams from Caboolture up here in Queensland. He was a First World War Gallipoli veteran. He was the only one in his family able to knit, and so had done all the knitting for his wife, 5 girls and 1 boy. Then there was Private Ernest Appleton from East Brisbane. He was especially proud of a baby shawl that he knitted using number 14 needles, Danny, and that won him first prize in a knitting competition in Sydney.
Wow.
Now, he'd been knitting since he was 10 years old, and that's when he knitted socks for his brother who was serving in the First World War in Belgium. In fact, one of Appleton's socks took a direct hit from the Germans in the Battle of Passchendaele when his brother was shot in the ankle. Look, there were lots of claims being made about who was the best male knitter in the Southern Hemisphere, but then there were the Cooper brothers here in Ipswich. Yeah, there was Andy Cooper from Raceview. He was a bus driver and knitted for relaxation. His knitting career later flourished because in 1949 he won first prize in the needlework section at the Ipswich show for his Fair Isle jumper. Now, you love Fair Isle jumpers.
Oh, I love them.
Yeah, but his older brother, James Henry Cooper, it was him who stole Australian hearts. You see, Timmy was a truckie and had started knitting when his wife was having trouble with a particularly difficult pattern. He made the mistake of giving her advice. The wife then threw the needles at him and told him to do it himself. So he did, and he never stopped knitting from then on. Jimmy was photographed in the Queensland Times wearing a jumper that he knitted for himself, and on his head was a tea cosy that won him first prize at a country show. And now Jimmy and his wife, spend their older years, their time at nights together, knitting while listening to the wireless. But get this.
What?
Jimmy's story of overcoming adversity to become the Southern Hemisphere's greatest male knitter so captivated knitting fans around Australia that a 4-verse poem was written about him and published in Melbourne.
Wow.
It was called The Needle Ace of Ipswich. Now, Danny, you got time for me to read a couple of verses?
Yes!
Well, these are just the last 2 verses, so it'll be quick. With flashing needles, Jim runs up a sock, or knits a snappy jumper for his missus, or turns out woolen garments for his flock, and is rewarded by their hugs and kisses, and gains a loud applause that is his due from fellow citizens in Ipswich. Whene'er his birthday comes around, I bet, with gifts of skeins of wool he's inundated by friends and relatives who hope to get them back as garments which he's created. But they, by that manoeuvre, I surmise, don't pull the wool over Jimmy Cooper's eyes. So, Danny, look, sadly, Jimmy Cooper passed away in 1982, but let's hope his knitting prowess as the best in the Southern Hemisphere is never forgotten.
Unbelievable story again. Like, Gaspard, he can play tennis, but a champion knitter? And he only passed away in 1982.
Yes, look, Danny, he's out at the Ipswich Cemetery. There should be some sort of memorial there.
Well,
A couple of big knitting needles or
you're
something.
right. And they should have a knit-off right around his grave. But that's
and look, that wouldn't that be fantastic? An annual knit-off around the grave?
Yeah.
And or just adding to an endless scarf to support charity, something like that.
You have come up with another great story. I don't know where you find them from, but why don't the locals, the council, put a book together of all your stories, historyouthere.com. That'll be when you're putting that, when you're hotting it out, when you're broadcasting that.
Oh, look, as soon as I get time. I'm getting so many calls from people now with ideas and stories to tell you on Saturday.
Oh, how good is that? And don't forget to send in your on Facebook, historyouthere.com, and share it with West Bremer Radio. All right? Good on you, Harold.
Okay, thanks, Danny.
Another great story, great history story on West Bremer Radio.